So the easiest thing for me is just to kind of go through it as if we were doing an install, and that's my spiel that I usually start with. See it for what it's worth at the moment. Some of it, slight differences over what you maybe had, especially with the old balancer back here. First one being that they went away from the real steep angle cones and they went to a collet style cones, so you can use either side. You just don't want to be on that middle flat portion, and the idea is just more repeatability over the real steep angle ones. The other thing I just can't stress enough is everything started out for hub centered wheels. You know, steel wheels were roll formed from the back side, so hence what all the cones coincide with. More and more of a necessity is what they call the pin plates or the finger plates, and guys that have seen different variations, you know, the very original ones got bolted to the wheels so nobody would use it because it takes too long. The next one you'd have to move all the fingers around, still took too long. So the newest variation is just an eccentric gear, so you've got one pin plate that works on every 5 lug, a 4 that works on 4 and 8, and then a 3 that works on the 6 lug. So as more and more lug centered wheels, along with Dodge has the clad faced wheel that if you mount it other ways you're going to crack that front face. So like I say, those pin plates are getting to be more and more prevalent. These new ones come with the speed nut, so where before you would sometimes have to order that as a separate entity, now basically you can go, you know, most of the way on the shaft and you're just tightening that last little bit. Same goes for loosening. Obviously, we didn't take everything out of the box, but there's no more rings. All the goodies are in the accessory box there. When you turn it on, again, guys that have used some of the older Coates machines that maybe had the mode button, or any of the guys that have ran the 1250, very similar on the display as far as configuration of weight placement. Anytime you turn it on, it always defaults to a dynamic clip balance, so that's generally what I just start with. At that point, the distance arm is automated, which balancers have been for quite some time now, so when you bring that out to the wheel, it's going to pick up the diameter and it's going to pick up that distance off the tape measure. And then now with the sonar in the hood, you literally just shut the hood and takes that width measurement and spins, so you don't even have to use the caliper anymore, which is another nice time-saving feature. The next thing that it does that's pretty remarkable is it indexes, so it's currently already locked onto that inside ½ ounce. Now it also has a 12 o'clock laser for placement, and you can index back and forth as many times as you want. So all you do is hit the next button, then it's locked to the outside. If you wanted to go back to that inside, by all means, you can hit stop exit at any point too, free roll it, and then if you want to go back to locking it on, you can do that as well. So again, we're currently locked onto that outside 3/4. And if we don't get zeros, you can blame the pallet. Normally they're sitting on them, but that's what you're looking for, obviously. I always start out with just kind of the 2 windows showing. That's what most of the balancers have. As guys get more and more specific, we have that middle window that shows how much overall static is still left in the tire. That's really for guys that are splitting hairs, so to speak. But what can happen is, because you're rounding to 1/4 ounce increments, you can be off ½ a quarter on the outside, ½ a quarter on the inside. You have zeros, but you technically still have a 1/4 ounce in balance. Some of that is because the weights vary more than what the manufacturers want to admit to. Some of it is that weight placement, which is hence why we have the lasers to help with putting things where they need to be. Realistically, as long as that's under a 1/4 ounce, you're doing pretty good. But for guys that are, like I say, trying to get as close to zero as possible, that's just another informational window.
Displaying the static on the screen?
Yeah, so the middle one. So basically,
but where is it on the? Is it showing it on the?
So at the moment, the dynamic and static when both lights are lit up, and then if we hit it one more time, it goes to static only.
That's what I wanted to know. Obviously, it's not showing it's under a 1/4, but it would show where it belongs on the wheel. Are you following me?
Where that overall static. So yeah, so if you had, say,
that had a ½ ounce.
Let me just see if I can. During a demo, it doesn't always go in my favor, but we'll see if we can do what you're describing anyway. So there's a better example. We're technically at 0, but we're, for all intents and purposes, a 1/4 ounce. So the first thing I generally do, and this is very similar to all the other Coates ones also, is any of the items above the number, it's shift in whichever one. So round off gets us down, and this is where I was talking about. We're very close to half a quarter, and together we got that 1/4 ounce. So the 1600 takes it one step farther, and they have a Pro Balance feature, which orients it. Otherwise, you can go into static only and do your final 1/4 ounce tape weight right in the middle, and that takes out that last little bit of hop. The other thing than static is the next one that we kind of went through. Once you hit that one more time, there's really not too many reasons why you would static balance other than these aftermarket wheels that everybody seems to be putting on vehicles. The reason for that, which kind of jumps me into the rest of these tape weight options. T3 is actually a tape weight that's outside the spoke, so that white line represents the spoke of the wheel. Again, those aftermarket wheels that are offset spokes, generally anybody with offset spokes is not going to want a tape weight on the face of their wheel. They do give you that as an option, but like I said, most people are going to do a static balance on those, and instead of doing a clip, they'll actually do a static balance with a tape weight down the middle of those aftermarket wheels or aluminum wheels, and that's usually the last use of that. So T3 you basically don't use, like I say. The other one is, you guys have that heritage here, but the drag racing, that patch is actually a patch weight that adheres inside the tire, nothing to do with a patch repair. Not a whole lot of shops have those weights, but it is possible. More common is the aluminum OEM wheels is going to be clip tape dynamic, or more and more getting to be tape scenario. Again, for those that aren't familiar with these machines, they do kind of a laser light show inside here, so as many people want to come up as whatever works to see this. But anytime you hit T2, there's a dot laser that goes on inside the face of the wheel, and the only way you're going to see it is to actually look in here and look at the dot that comes on inside here. So again, anytime you hit T2, there's a laser. This knurled knob is actually how you aim that laser, and normally speaking, that flat drop center is where you're going to put the weight, and you're going to go over as far as you can to the spokes. So yeah, that first time we just did a clip balance. So now transitioning to the tape weight, you first have to always tell it where you're putting the weight first. Then once you have those chosen, the laser does need to be oriented for the dot, but then again, you always come to the first location, wait for that beep, and then there's one more kind of laser light show. You go in so the line and the dot cross while that arm is all the way up, because it takes a second diameter reading, and because every drop center comes in differently, and then it also takes a second A dimension because every offset's different. And then at that point, shut the hood again. Again, indexes to where we want it, locks to the inside location. We're set up currently for a tape weight, so it just assumes you're going to put a tape weight as far out as you can, or if we were doing a clip, either one of those is going to be 12 o'clock. Everything up till now has, for the most part, been 12 o'clock with a single line. The one thing that changes now is when we're locked onto this T2, it goes 3 lights, and that dot is solid now. So again, if you look in here, the dot, you're never going to put a tape weight on a blinking dot. But now because that indexes and locks on, it makes it real easy. You're not trying to hold the tire with your leg or anything like that, but you're just going to send your tape weight right on that dot. So that's kind of the basic function. The rest of it is some neat features that go along with it. As more and more, again, we talk aftermarket wheels and things like that, you can hide the tape weight behind the spoke. So say you had a 5-spoke wheel and you didn't want to look in and see all that tape weight in there. I've got a couple lines drawn on my wheel, but we'll just pretend for this purpose. So if we don't want to put that 1 ounce where we could see it, we're going to tell the machine behind the spoke at this point. The information box walks you through most of what you're going to do, but you're going to align it with spoke 1. So I'm going to just arbitrarily pick a couple of positions. We're going to tell it that's spoke 1. This is where it originally wanted the weight, and then we'll say that that's spoke 2. Depends on how close you are to each spoke, but now it wants 3/4 of an ounce behind that one, a 1/2 ounce behind that one, and then it's still going to lock onto your inboard location. Not something that you're going to do on every single tire, but and then kind of the last ones to round up on, just like I did round off with shift round off, same on any of these items. So another one that's pretty popular is it always goes to A, but you can have 2 individuals working on 2 different sets of wheels. One can have all the dimensions in for the tape weight. I can come along, switch it to operator B, and I could be doing my steel wheel. Next person could come along, switch it back, and you still have all those dimensions in for the tape weights. So just all time-saving features. The indexing, not having to do the width caliper dimensions, it just over the long run really speeds things up. Some of these weights only come in gram increments, so instead of doing the math, you can just switch it to grams. Hood start, everybody pretty much leaves on unless you have some, radical slick that doesn't fit under the hood or something like that. But a couple other little things that go along with that. Coates' claim to fame, for those that don't know, is definitely the direct drive. Every other balancer out there, it's a spindle with a belt to a motor. So one way or another, there's outside forces. Whereas the direct drive, the motor is the spindle. So everything is balanced other than the tire and wheel that you're putting on there, with the exception of if you break a hub nut or something outside of the normal. So the beauty of it is if you get 0, 0, a 0, even if you have to fight at it a little bit, whether it's because weight placement or weights don't exactly weigh what they say they weigh, things of that nature. A couple other little things since we're just talking about it. Being with the speed nut, we generally recommend loosening it before just hitting the release, otherwise you're going to blow those teeth out prematurely. They do sell rebuild kits, but the best case is to just get in the habit of when you're done balancing, hit stop exit. That way you're able to rotate this and get a good grip to be able to loosen this and then hit the release. Again, kind of going back to different revisions of things. The very early line lasers used batteries that weren't quite so common, so now it's just a AA battery in there, so it's nothing too hard to get a hold of. It'll start blinking at you when the battery gets low. Even guys that do a lot of tape weights, it lasts at least a year or two, that AA battery. The dot laser is hardwired, so you don't have issues there. And then there is a cooling fan that blows air through that main drive motor as well. I just brought this one because I just have the 5-lug wheel, but there's actually 3 little nubs that go on the top of the balancer. So if you've seen those, that's actually what the intention is to have all 3 pin plates all ready to go up on top. Like I say, anything with a tapered lug nut is ultimately a lug-centered wheel, and that's basically every wheel out there now is truly a lug-centered wheel. Toyotas are notorious. I've had any number of customers think they need new balancers, and it truly comes down to the mounting. If you were doing that, you still want a back cone whenever possible, but they give you one more little attachment. So instead of the pressure drum, they got the Nomar rings, so you're running plastic up against the pin plates rather than metal on metal. Like I say, you still want a back cone whenever possible. And then the pin plate comes to the front. It definitely makes it easier if you've already set it up to the wheel before you put this on. But there you can kind of get an idea what you're never going to touch the front of the face of the wheel.